Zapraszam serdecznie w kolejnym dniu naszego spotkania miłego.
Okay, welcome to the next day of our seminar.
Chciałam poinformować, że pani profesor Indira Jagania została zaproszona do władz miasta i będzie na lunchu o godzinie 12.
Just for your information, Professor Indira Jagania was invited by the local authority to a meeting, so she will join us for lunch.
I z takich oficjalnych zapytań chciałabym zapytać, czy Państwo już wiecie, ile osób pójdzie na obiad?
Officially, I would like to ask, do you know how many of you would like to go to lunch today?
All of us.
Okay, so it's the same.
Na pewno, bo się tam
You know, it's important because the restaurant needs to get prepared for a bigger group of guests. So, like, surely everyone? No. Okay, so maybe easier who's not going?
No. I will explain you later because just during a lunch yesterday we spoke about do you need any the visit in the old town. So we decided that just after the lunch we will have a free time, so we can just walk on the city center and go back here at 1:30.
So it's not going to be all together and organized?
No.
Okay.
Or maybe you need like this kind of. No, okay. So just after lunch, we can just walk to the island. Walk 1.5 hours. No. You are just going on the lunch together, and after lunch you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
But just because we noticed yesterday that it's a little bit longer, so I'm not sure that we will have a time for just visit the old town. So I think when we start the lunch at 12, just after 1 hour, we just be. We have a meeting at 1:30. 1:30, not here, but in the K building. K building. There was Academic Medical Center. Yes.
Building K.
Yes, building K.
So we need to show who's not coming to lunch, right?
Yeah, so maybe it's easier to count who's not.
We not on this lunch, so
5, 8. 8, am I right? Yeah.
Wiecie, na którym mogę słuchać Dobra. Ale my będziemy kolektor sejnowego numeru.
Only 14% is coming.
So 14% is coming.
Yeah.
And 8 not. Okay, so I can tell the professor.
Yeah, because it's so important.
14, okay.
Okay, so summarizing, we start our discussion here today from I think like just about 9, and we end just before your lunch. And if you are going to lunch, you are going with us or not. But please be here back at 1:30. Just in the K building. K building, not here, but be 1:30 in the K building. There will be also Magda and she will help us to go to the laboratory of universal design.
Okay.
Okay. Dobre. Okej, to myślę, że możemy zaczynać. Okay, so I think we can start. Once again, welcome everybody. And just before our discussion, our panel, I just want to say that the main idea was to share our experience. Yes, because we want to talk about how to support students in different ways. And today we invite our colleagues from other universities, and I think that will be a great occasion to share the different points of view about systems of psychological help for our students. And also, I think also you have some kind of experience. I know that we are just in the middle of the project, and you are preparing yourself for this kind of institutional support. But I think at this moment you also have some kind of experience about work, psychological work with the students. Okay, so at the beginning, I just want to introduce our guests. Czy może Państwo będą się samodzielnie przedstawiać,
A ja mogę tłumaczyć.
Okej, dobra?
Tak jest chyba lepiej. Zacznijmy od pana.
Okej.
Stanisław Kowalik zajmuje się psychologią społeczną, psychologią rehabilitacji. Z tej okoliczności, która sprowadziła nas tutaj, mogę tylko powiedzieć, że byłem wieloletnim dyrektorem Instytutu Psychologii w Poznaniu, prodziekanem do spraw nauki i dydaktyki przez 2 kadencje, przez 3 kadencje w Instytucie i potem przez 2 kadencje prorektorem. Także zgromadziłem dużo doświadczeń, jeśli chodzi o problemy, które dzisiaj tutaj będziemy pewnie poruszać.
Professor Stanislaw Kowalik, who is an expert in social psychology and rehabilitation psychology. He was the head of the Institute of Psychology of the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań for many years, and I think those are the most important facts.
Okay.
Ja się nazywam Kamila Komorowska i jestem pełnomocnikiem rektora do spraw pomocy psychologicznej z Uniwersytetu Kazimierza Wielkiego w Bydgoszczy.
Kamila Komorowska, Kazimierz Wielki University, the rector's proxy for disabled students problem.
Zajmuję się wsparciem i pomocą psychologiczną, która jest skierowana do całej społeczności akademickiej w naszym uniwersytecie.
My area of activity is psychological support for the entire academic community.
Okay.
Barbara Lorek, jestem psychologiem i psychoterapeutą. Pracuję na 2 wyższych uczelniach. Zajmuję się konsultacjami na UMK, na Uniwersytecie Mikołaja Kopernika w Toruniu oraz na Akademii Muzycznej w Bydgoszczy. Tygodniowo pracuję z około 20 studentami od około prawie 2 lat, więc zdążyłam zebrać już takie ciekawe wnioski. Mam nadzieję, że się Państwu przyda.
Barbara Lorek, a psychologist and a psychotherapist, co-working with 2 universities, the Musical University and Nicholas Copernicus University in Toruń. She also works individually with students on sessions.
Okay, so maybe there will be also a chance to talk about yours, yes, about your experience and also from which university you are from. So maybe we start from here. No, I think they will be. They can use in English. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lika. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a Gestalt therapist, and originally a neuropsychologist. I'm representing the University of Caucasus, which is a private university. I'm teaching there. And as for my experience working with the students, it just so happened that most of my clients are young people, and some of them are also my students, which kind of creates ethical dilemmas for me. And I'd like to talk about this if there would be an opportunity, because it's a challenge. But we don't have a counseling center at our university yet, though it's planned to have one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next.
I am Yacha Associate Professor of Tel State University. I have 18 years of experience in education and psychology. I have been teaching and supervising academic subjects for bachelor students. I was an active participant of the project Stress and Movement, Psychological Problems and Ways of Studying Against them. As a university professor, I have a wide experience of participating in professional conferences and workshops focused on education, pedagogy, and psychology. My professional interests are focused on students with special education needs, and I got interested in how to plan work with students who have special education needs.
Okay, thank you.
Representative of Suzuki State Teaching University, head of international projects. Honestly, I don't have a psychological background, but at the time when I was living in Gdańsk, here in Poland, I was working with parents, and I had relationships with children.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I present Assertiveness basically State Teaching University. I'm an English language teacher at the university, and at the same time I'm an Horizon Europe graduate coordinator at this university. And let's say that today our team is psychologists isn't attending from our team, but we are here to get information and share with our team.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Nadia. I'm a child and adolescent clinical psychologist. I'm also associate professor at Tbilisi State University. Now present Tbilisi Crisis Intervention Service.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Victoria Jeffrey. I was at the I'm from Tbilisi State University. As we have we are a small consulting site for students. We are working for students with different difficulties. I and Lana have different experiences in our job. But we both are child and adolescent psychologists.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Nina Obishuri, and I work with Tema and represent KISS. So I work with children and adolescents, and also I work with Lana and Rika at Tbilisi State University with students.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Lana Gatuchilate. Me and Rika are from Tbilisi State University, as Rika mentioned it before, and we are presenting to you our small psychological counseling center. We have this in our university. We support students different kind of difficulties, mostly emotional and behavioral difficulties.
Matthew Pandikidze, Associated Professor of Bydgoszcz University, psychoconsultant, counselor, lecturer, and art therapist, clinical art therapist. I'm leading the Link Museum Tbilisi Outpatient Clinical Art Therapy Center, international chain in Georgia, and also rehabilitation, psychorehabilitation center Camara. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you much.
Something else also.
Hello, my name is Konferencja. I'm Dean of the Medical Faculty. I'm representative with ICT University. Actually, I'm not a psychologist. I'm involved in this project as an administrative staff. We're just starting this psychological project, and it's our aim to conduct psychological groups and to give the services for our students as Georgians as foreigners one. So your experience in this field is very important for us. So thank you once again.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Kata Bopalian from Support State University. It means
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Eleni. I'm representative of Bydgoszcz University. We have a clinic in our university which one is free for everybody, not only for the students or the children that are coming from the schools. We had this big experience and we had a practice in our clinic, and thanks for this Mrs. Ketevan, because she is the head of this. Mostly I work in psychotherapy as a body-oriented psychotherapist.
Okay, thank you. Marta?
Hello, I'm Marta Tibura. I represent Italian organization participating in the project, and we provide evaluation support inside the project. So I'm not a psychologist. I work as a project manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, hello. My name is Yolanda, and Mr. So we are representative from San Federal State University. I'm a project manager and working in the International Relations Office. So in my university there is no faculty of psychology, so while we have the program and some lecturers are working in this field. So among this project we are trying to establish the consulting center in our university, and experience which we will get here is very useful for us to use it in the future in our university.
Thank you.
I am Nina Megamitzer. I am here with our Dean of Social Science, Business and Law. I am professor at this faculty, and at the same time I am the coordinator of international projects at Bydgoszcz State University, and it's really nice to lead this project as we are after the Russian invasion. It's very interesting to have this research center as the projects are considered about it. And at the same time, our partnership with Polish universities, we have some of these Bydgoszcz University, 2 universities in Bydgoszcz, this economy, University of Economy, and Kazimierz University, and all universities. We have some 7 projects with Open University, and we have the partnership under the Erasmus Plus project for staff and mobility of staff and students. It's really interesting, and I think that after this memorandum of understanding, we will be as partners through mobility, staff mobility. It's very interesting for our university too. And
I hope so. Thank you.
I'm dealing social sciences, business and law. Not psychology, I'm linguist.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Katarina. I'm present at Bydgoszcz State University Association Professor. I head clinical psychology at Bydgoszcz State University. I'm psychotherapist. I head Association of
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Katie Levatsen. I'm from Bydgoszcz State University, a lecturer, and generally I'm a child and adolescent psychotherapist. So this will be something new I will try with students too, but some of my clients are now also students. So this will be a new opportunity for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Everybody introduce yourself. So I think at the beginning, maybe we should ask our Polish guests how psychological support works at your university. Could you shortly describe the environment for the psychological support at Uniwersytet Kazimierza Wielkiego University? Just give us a short brief about this psychological support at your university.
Dobrze.
Krótko, jak to tam działa, nie?
Na naszym uniwersytecie każdy członek, każda osoba, która jest w społeczności akademickiej, może skorzystać z wsparcia psychologicznego.
So at our university, each and every member of the academic community, the whole academic community, is eligible to use the system of psychological support.
Jest strona internetowa, na której są przedstawione usługi psychologiczne.
We have a website on which, for instance, the office hour of our psychologists are displayed.
I osoba, która potrzebuje wsparcia i pomocy, może się w taki sposób właśnie umówić na konsultację.
And whenever you need help, just look up for the office hours of psychologists, just write an email and appoint yourself for a visit.
Poza tym przez jakiś czas prowadziłam również takie wykłady z zakresu profilaktyki zdrowia psychicznego.
For some time I gave lectures on mental health prevention,
które miały na celu jakby edukować studentów oraz nauczycieli akademickich, jak radzić sobie w trudnych sytuacjach.
The aim of this lecture were to generally educate both students but also academic teachers how to cope and how to care about mental health.
Jak rozpoznać pierwsze objawy choroby psychicznej.
How to recognize, for instance, the first symptoms of possible mental health issue.
Jak rozpoznać trudności czy pewnego rodzaju zaburzenia u naszych najbliższych.
How to recognize some disorders or symptoms of problem in our close ones.
Oraz gdzie szukać w takich sytuacjach wsparcia i pomocy.
And where to seek for professional help in such situations.
W sytuacji, w czasie kiedy była pandemia,
during the pandemic time,
wspólnie z samorządem studenckim,
together with the Students' Council,
organizowaliśmy takie spotkania online.
We used to organize online meetings.
I na tych spotkaniach poruszaliśmy różnego rodzaju problemy, rozmawiając z różnymi specjalistami.
During these meetings, we tackled different problems and discussed them with different dedicated specialists.
Natomiast na ostatnim spotkaniu miałam taką przyjemność zaprosić lekarza psychiatrę.
During the recent meeting, a doctor in psychiatry joined us.
I rozmawialiśmy o współczesnych też metodach leczenia chorób psychicznych.
And we discussed the contemporary methods of treating mental health issues.
Tak, oraz jakby przełamywaliśmy tabu związane z chorobami psychicznymi.
And also this discussion was about to break some kind of taboo around mental health.
Tak myślę.
So this is the basic description.
Okay, so maybe our first question, and I think what is the most popular programs with the students? If you have your experience and what is the most popular problem for the students?
Chyba najczęstszym problemem, z którym się spotykam, to są zaburzenia lękowe.
The most common problem I encounter as a specialist are anxiety problems.
Zaburzenia lękowe. Często przychodzą osoby w takiej początkowej fazie depresji.
We also have quite often students with at the initial stage of depression.
Zdarzają się przypadki, że na przykład przychodzą osoby z objawami psychotycznymi.
Also people with psychotic symptoms.
No i wtedy pierwszy raz jakby szukamy wsparcia, gdzie pójść z takim problemem. Czasami muszę wzywać w sytuacjach zagrożenia życia również pogotowie.
So the first meeting is usually about how to seek for further help, but sometimes in the most serious cases, I'm forced to just call the emergency because I can see that this person's health and life is a danger.
Na uniwersytecie nie prowadzi się terapii.
At the university, we do not conduct therapy as such.
Jest to takie wsparcie interwencyjne w sytuacjach kryzysowych.
It's more crisis support, interventional support.
Szukamy wtedy miejsc, do których mogą się te osoby udać, żeby rozpocząć terapię czy proces leczenia.
We seek for other places, for other medical or psychological centers where our students can be referred for further help or for long-term therapy.
Wspieram również osoby z zespołem Aspergera.
I also provide a support for people with Asperger's syndrome.
Ta praca polega, jest ukierunkowana na taką indywidualną pracę ze studentem, jak i również często związana jest ze spotkaniami z grupą studencką, w której ta osoba funkcjonuje, ale również z nauczycielami akademickim.
So the work with Asperger's students is usually the individual work with a certain student, but also I also provide the meetings for the entire students group, where the students with Asperger is a member, or also with academic teachers of such students.
Odpowiadam również na prośby nauczycieli akademickich, którzy mają trudności, zmagają się z różnymi problemami natury psychicznej, które pojawiają się u studentów. I wtedy w ramach takich spotkań i rozmów tłumaczę te zjawiska, daję wskazówki, jak wspierać czy jak reagować.
I also often answer questions or requests from our academic teachers who encounter students with mental health issues, and my job is to explain what is going on, what are the types, what are the kinds of mental health problems, how to cope.
Okay, and do you have any experience working with the foreign students? Okay.
Ostatnio miałam doświadczenie ze studentami z Ukrainy i z Białorusi.
I also have the experience of working with foreign students, so recently students from Ukraine and Belarus.
Osoby te potrafiły mówić w języku polskim.
These persons were able to speak Polish.
Problemy niczym nie odbiegały od problemów ludzi.
So their problems were quite universal compared to problems of Polish students.
Były to właśnie tak zaburzenia lękowe.
So again, anxiety problems,
radzenie sobie ze stresem,
coping with stress, and like basically all.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mrs. Lala, you describe.
Yes, we support students in two ways. The first one we support students in two ways. The one is about. I'm sorry, I'm in stress right now.
Okay, so maybe don't use it all.
Yes, okay. My pracujemy z studentami na dwa sposoby. Pracujemy w dużym centrum.
So we work with our students in two ways. The first one is in a bigger center.
Który angażuje bardzo wiele osób z różnych wydziałów nauczania.
A center that involves different people from different faculties.
Odkryliśmy, że w współpracy jest duża siła.
We discovered there's a huge power in cooperation.
Na początku zaangażowaliśmy do współpracy rzeczników praw studentów.
At first, we involved the students' rights spokespeople.
I ta współpraca bardzo dobrze się układa.
So the cooperation is going really, really well.
Współpracujemy, to znaczy zajmujemy się opieką psychologiczną nie tylko dla studentów, ale również dla pracowników.
We provide psychological care not just for students, but also for academic staff members.
Zrozumieliśmy, że tak naprawdę atmosfera na uczelni nie jest zależna tylko od tego, jak się czują studenci, tak? Ale również od tego, jak się czują nasi wykładowcy, pracownicy administracji i różnych innych wydziałów.
Because we understand that the general atmosphere, the general climate at the university depends not only on the students' welfare and well-being, but also on academic staff members' well-being.
Naszą taką ideą pierwotną było to, żeby stworzyć taki łatwy dostęp do specjalisty.
The initial idea was to provide some kind of easy access to specialists.
Ponieważ studenci bardzo skarżyli się na to, że kolejki do psychologa są niezwykle wydłużone i tak naprawdę w momencie oczekiwania oni rezygnują z tych wizyt.
So our students often complain that the waiting times to get the appointment at a psychologist or psychotherapist are very long, and sometimes the waiting time is something that discourages them from using the support.
Ta część związana z pomocą studentom opiera się na konsultacjach właśnie psychologicznych.
So the support system is mainly based on psychological consultations,
które odbywają się również w takiej interwencyjnej formie, natomiast
that sometimes are in the interventional form.
Natomiast proponujemy jedną niż więcej konsultacje.
But we usually suggest to students more than one consultation.
Pomiędzy tymi konsultacjami mamy kontakt ze studentami za pomocą czatu.
Between the consultations, between the meetings, we try to stay in touch with the students using the text chat, for instance.
Ponieważ konsultacje są oddalone od siebie w czasie.
So there is a certain time between the first and the consecutive meeting.
I to zwiększa poczucie bezpieczeństwa u studentów.
And we believe it increases the feeling of security among our students, this staying in touch.
Oni bardzo często to podkreślają, że to jest coś, co bardzo im pomaga.
Very often our students emphasize that this staying in touch via chat is something that gives them extra safety, extra security.
Na takim spotkaniu, które trwa około 50 minut,
the meeting time is usually 50 minutes.
Zwykle ja używam wywiadu klinicznego po to, żeby po tym spotkaniu studentowi udzielić odpowiedzi, czy opisać jego problem też językiem klinicznym, żeby ewentualnie też go pokierować dalej, jeśli potrzebuje pomocy psychiatrycznej, czy jakiegokolwiek innego specjalisty.
I usually do the clinical interview during the first meeting, which enables me to give the feedback to the students after the session, and also to call the problems in the clinical language, in the language of clinical terms, so that the students is able to get referrals to other centers and seek for more help.
Bardzo istotne jest to, żeby to był dobrze ustrukturyzowany wywiad, dlatego że jeśli nie zadamy bardzo ważnych pytań, to ludzie nam nie udzielą tych najważniejszych odpowiedzi. Bardzo często
it's really important that the interview is well structured, because sometimes if we don't ask certain questions, we don't get certain answers, and we are not able to fully diagnose the situation of a student.
Wśród problemów, które przybrały na sile w ostatnim czasie, zdecydowanie myśli samobójcze, tendencje samobójcze są czymś, co bardzo nas martwi i zajmuje nasze głowy, więc na przykład to pytanie również musi się pojawić.
Okay, so one of the questions we always ask is a question regarding suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies, because what we observe, this is a growing tendency. This has been a growing tendency recently, and this is something that worries us, and that's why we do our best to ask also about that area during the interview.
Stworzyliśmy procedury, które pozwalają również wykładowcom, pracownikom i studentom czuć się bezpiecznie wtedy, kiedy ktoś zgłasza taką tendencję na uczelni.
We also create some kind of protocol, some kind of procedure for academic teachers, how to behave, what to do when there is a student that talks about suicidal thoughts, so that also the teacher can feel safely when reporting such case.
A druga część tego naszego wsparcia dotyczy rozwoju, dotyczy wszystkiego, co może im pomagać w rozwijaniu się i w zapobieganiu przed pojawieniem się różnych chorób.
So the second part of our support services is more developmental, is about development, it's also in a huge extent about the prevention of how to prevent possible mental health problems.
Oczywiście są wykłady, są warsztaty psychologiczne,
lectures, workshops.
Są podcasty, bardzo mocno jakby gdzieś tam nastawione na well-being, na szukanie takich.
We also have podcasts with well-being and psychology-related contents.
Myślę, że to są takie najważniejsze wnioski. Ja jeszcze może powiem o tym, jakie trzy główne, ja podzieliłam te problemy, z którymi przychodzą studenci na trzy główne obszary.
Okay, so I would also like to tell you about three main groups of problems that our students usually come with.
Taki poziom obszar psychologiczny, w którym zawieram problemy z motywacją. Może Pani przeczytać?
So the first area are, for instance, problems with motivation.
Problemy z motywacją, z żałobą, z rodziną.
But also problems with grief, family problems.
Problemy podczas właśnie motywacji najczęściej występujące w momencie pisania prac dyplomowych. Takie.
So the motivational problems usually occur in the period of preparing the diploma thesis.
Zaliczanie, to znaczy przed sesjami, praca ze stresem.
Before the examination sessions, this is usually how to work with the stress.
Nazywam je psychologicznymi, bo one jakby stopień nasilenia jeszcze nie mówi nam o rozwoju zaburzeń czy chorób psychicznych, ale jest jakby takim jednostkowym, ziizolowanym problemem.
So we embrace these problems. These problems are not usually symptoms of bigger mental health problems, but anyway, we try to like embrace as cases.
Problemy psychiatryczne.
Also psychiatrical problems.
Najczęściej spotykamy to zaburzenia lękowe.
Anxiety problems again.
Lękowo-depresyjne.
Anxiety and depression problems.
Lęk społeczny.
Social anxiety.
Uzależnienia.
Addictions.
Niezdiagnozowane zespoły Aspergera.
Also undiagnosed Asperger's syndrome.
No i oczywiście depresja.
And of course depression.
I ostatni to są problemy relacyjne na uczelni.
And the last field of problems are problems with relationships within the university.
Które zawierają sprawy mobbingowe.
For instance, cases of mobbing, a lack of respect, a lack of cooperation.
Więc z takimi problemami od 2 lat pracujemy, spotykamy się i angażujemy różne osoby, które są specjalistami w danych dziedzinach i odpowiadamy aktywnie na te.
So these are the main fields of problem that we've been working at the university for the last 2 years, together with a group of specialists.
Okay, so we have a short description about types and methods of support, and it was like our first phase of discussion. So maybe if you have any questions about this type, yes, please ask.
Hello, thanks a lot for the information you provided. It was very interesting for me. And you mentioned suicidal thoughts, and I have a question related to this topic. Sometimes there are cases which are very extreme, and there are severe depression, suicidal ideation, and what strategies the university uses in these cases? I will try to specify it. Sometimes it takes quite a lot of time to find support, even though you refer them, because you need to wait for the psychiatrist. Then you need 2 weeks at least to start the medication and see the effect, and sometimes you need to change the medication and start the therapy at the same time.
And costs quite long.
Yeah, it takes quite a long time, and the study is going at the university, and students most of the time are very worried about the grades. Do you have any strategies to, for example, reduce stress related to the grades and studies and exams? Because sometimes it becomes a trigger to severe the symptoms again.
Sometimes students start their studies and they have to focus on their health. And sometimes when we also have a psychiatric support on our university. We work with 2 psychiatrists and students don't have to wait so long. So that's why. Yes, but if situation is very dangerous and really close to suicide, we propose to go to the hospital, to the
at the emergency.
Emergency, yes, at the emergency. But sometimes we have to just try to make the stress lower for the student. But if this not works, sometimes students have to stop his study.
So it's their responsibility.
Yes.
To tolerate lower grades at this period.
I have a question. So, do you have the power of writing the conclusion that a student has mental health problems, therefore they cannot continue education, and that wouldn't be reflected on their grades? Like if they had a surgery, a doctor would write a note, and the student would be excused. Could you do the same for mental health?
Yes, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course.
And the university accepts your...
Yes, of course. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now I have a question on behalf of our group, because yesterday we discussed perfectionism as one of the problems. So you mentioned that you also work with the musical university, and we discussed art universities and art colleges as possibly a community where people set up very high expectations to themselves. Also the teachers do. So is that a common problem, for instance, in the musical students' environment?
It's a common problem, yes. And this relation between the student and the teacher is very special. And of course, I work with students how to not be so perfect. It's difficult, yeah. But we work I use many methods called mind sculpture that they exercise the moment. They can try and train the moment when they come to the scene and they have to play or sing, and they doing this in their minds every night for a half a minute, and they are relaxed in this fantasy, and then it works on a scene. Maybe it helps, but I don't know if your students on Artist Academy also have this problem. But students on a music academy, they have a problem how to show their skills on a concert or a conference.
Public performance. Okay. You continue.
So you have mentioned that have experience working with foreigners as well. I'm interested if there is any differences, what they need, and what kind of services you were suggesting for the students.
Okay, I work with Ukrainian and Belarus students. They speak in English, but after starting the war in Ukraine, I do many diagnoses from PTSD and ASD, and then my work in this moment was not so effective. I proposed them to go to the psychiatric. Right now, I'm working with them on trauma, and this is the main difference, because our students don't have a lot of trauma, or they don't come to me with ASD, yes. But students from Ukraine very often, yes.
Not only Ukraine, because I have a great experience working with students, and maybe I'm not psychologist, but I had to deal a lot of problems and solve with them. Actually, all the foreigners have from beginning adaptation problems when they arrive in different countries. So accordingly, they face a lot of problems. For example, today in the morning we just spoke about the family. All of them are missing their families.
Yes.
So the collective cultures, especially Indian students, etc.
Yes, of course. When the adaptation problems are on the beginning, and it is in 6 weeks after they come to our country, it's okay. But after 6 weeks is some kind of disorder, and then we have to carry for the students, and we have to work with this. Yes, sometimes we need also pharmacotherapy. Yes, but when they find somebody who wants to talk with them, they feel more safety. Of course, they miss for their families, but we also trying to make some groups for them. But they individual way, they looking for somebody from their country. They do this also.
I have a question to all of you, and Barbara, all of you guys. And I think my colleague voiced it yesterday as well. Some of my students are my clients. And many of my students want to become my clients, and I'm usually telling them after we're done with the lectures. So how do you regulate this problem with ethics and borders, because it's two different roles?
It's not good.
So for everybody. What's your best practice in this case?
Albo takich tematach właśnie konfliktu, jak sobie radzimy z rozwiązaniem tego, czy dopuszczamy do tego w ogóle w sensie student, który na przykład miałby zostać w terapii też klientem, pacjentem.
It's not good to mix the context. I'm not from the university. My friend, my psychologist friend, is from university, and often when she works with her students, it's not good, because on zajęcia classes, yes, there are many problems after. They want to be closer, or they got some problems. They can think that the teacher knows about them or talks about them when teacher describes some kind of disease, disorder. They can think that it is. That's my case. And yesterday, my colleague was very frustrated because yes, it happens on her classes. The student thought that it's about it's about me, and it's not good. If you are from this university, you should take only somebody who will not meet you on a corridor.
Faktem, że nie prowadzi się terapii psychologicznej.
So due to the the fact that the psychological therapy is not run at the university,
nie ma takiego problemu.
there is no such conflict of interest.
Psychologa zawsze obowiązuje tajemnica zawodowa.
So as psychologists, we are always obliged by the professional confidentiality.
Tak, i jakby rozwiązujemy czy analizujemy problem, który tylko zostaje między nami.
And we solve a problem, we discuss a problem that only stays between us, me and the clients.
Tak, i potem szukamy, jeżeli jest taka konieczność, konsultacji w innych miejscach.
Whenever there is a need for further help, we try to refer our students to other centers.
Mi bardzo zależało, żeby być na uniwersytecie osobą rozpoznawalną.
I really wanted to be a, let's say, a well-known person at the university so that the students can know me.
Tak, właśnie te spotkania online, wykłady.
Like all the online meetings, all the lectures.
To ułatwia nawiązywanie ze mną kontaktów w sytuacjach kryzysowych.
Because it makes students, it's easier for students to get in touch with me in crisis situations.
I wtedy spotykam się z przeróżnymi problemami.
And then I encounter different problems from students.
Ale zawsze pokazuję, że nie ma sytuacji bez rozwiązania.
But I always tend to show that there are not situations without solutions.
Więc albo szukam czasami miejsca w akademiku, albo szukam wsparcia, żeby student mógł dostać jakieś dofinansowanie z uczelni.
So sometimes the way of support is, for instance, finding someone a room in a dormitory or showing someone how to apply for a financial support.
A czasami właśnie wspieram kogoś w zaburzeniach lękowych.
Sometimes it's support in anxiety problems, in depression.
A czasami jest tak, że właśnie te procedury tutaj mnie zainspirowały w sytuacjach, kiedy ktoś chce popełnić samobójstwo. Czasami no właśnie wzywam pogotowie.
Sometimes the only thing I can do is just call the emergency, for instance, when in case of suicidal thoughts.
So there's like a link that refers and
Czyli jakby bardziej linkujecie ludzi do innej pomocy.
Tak, biorąc pod uwagę, że jestem jedna, a na uniwersytecie jest parę tysięcy ludzi, no to szukamy jakiegoś rozwiązania.
So regarding the fact that it is only me at the university who deals with that, and we have thousands of students, we have to link people to other services.
Jeszcze jedno.
And one more thing.
W sytuacji kryzysowej związanej z wojną,
in crisis situations related to war,
zorganizowałam wsparcie na uniwersytecie online.
I organize an online support at our university on Teams platform.
Tam codziennie odbywają się dyżury prowadzone przez studentów 5. roku z Wydziału Psychologii i nauczycieli akademickich.
So each day on the Teams platform there are some kind of office hours provided by students from the 5th year of psychology program, MA program, and their academic teachers.
Natomiast zainteresowanie nie jest duże.
There is no big interest in that.
Ale jest taka możliwość.
But still there is a possibility.
Wolą, znaczy preferują spotkania osobiste ze mną.
It looks like students prefer in-person meetings with me than online meetings.
Okay. U nas to wygląda w taki sposób, że ja prowadzę część zajęć ze studentami i rzeczywiście zdarza się tak.
So in case of our university, like this university, I also lecture some classes with the students. I'm a lecturer, and it sometimes happens,
że studenci, moi studenci, tak, jakby zwracają się z różnego rodzaju problemami do mnie, własnymi lub częściej dotyczącymi swoich dzieci.
So sometimes it occurs that the students come to me with their problems. They turn to me with their problems, but maybe even more oftenly with problems of their children.
I jeżeli chodzi tutaj o takich moich studentów, to
so when it comes to my students,
to w przypadku problemu dotyczącego bezpośrednio studenta, ja udzielam takiej konsultacji, tak?
So when it's the students, specifically the students' problem, I offer a consultation, a meeting.
I zastanawiamy się wspólnie dalej, jakie są możliwości wsparcia, czy skorzystanie z terapii, bo u nas jest taka możliwość w poradni z psychologiem, z psychoterapeutą.
So during this meeting, together with the students, together, we tried together to find a solution, also linking to other services, for instance, long-term therapy that is available at our counseling center at the university.
Somebody else does it.
Somebody else, u kogoś innego.
Tak, u kogoś,
Yes, at somebody
nie
else.
wchodzę w kontakt terapeutyczny ze swoim własnym studentem.
So I do not work in therapy with my own students.
Tak, tak. Natomiast ja tylko konsultuję i kieruję dalej.
I just do the general consultation and I link people to other specialists.
Ponieważ jednak u nas terapia jest odpłatna osób dorosłych, już taka dłuższa.
Because as we discussed yesterday, the long-term therapy for adult people is usually, it has to be paid.
To wskazuje też alternatywne możliwości, chociażby nasze akademickie centrum medyczne, gdzie mamy z Funduszu Zdrowia również wsparcie psychiatryczne, psychologiczne i psychoterapeutyczne, czyli nieodpłatne.
So because of the fact that the long-term therapy is not free of charge, I also tend to link people to other places where they can get a place in therapy that is co-financed by the National Health Fund, so it's free of charge in fact.
Natomiast bardzo często zdarza się tak, że trafiają do nas dzieci studentów na diagnostykę.
But what happens quite often is not the students, but our student children. They come to our center to get the diagnosis.
I w efekcie równie często na terapię.
And as the effect of the diagnosis, quite often also to the therapy.
I w tę terapię bywam zaangażowana.
And in this therapy, so in the therapy of my students' children, I sometimes get involved.
Część z tych dzieci ma tak zwane wczesne wspomaganie rozwoju.
So some of these children are supported with the wczesne wspomaganie rozwoju, early development support,
które u nas jest darmowe, za darmo,
which is free of charge at our center.
I wsparcia udziela zespół terapeutów.
And this support is done by a group, a team of therapists,
dobierając specyfikę terapii do potrzeb dziecka.
Using like several methods, several tools to the several specific child needs.
Natomiast trafiają do mnie też studenci, nie moi, ale z naszych uczelni.
Sometimes the people who I meet at the office are not my students, I mean students from different programs, different faculties of our university.
I tu, jeżeli jest taka potrzeba, wchodzimy dalej właśnie w ten taki kontakt terapeutyczny.
So whenever it's needed, whenever necessary, with those students I can start a long-term therapy process.
W poradni naszej nie mamy lekarza psychiatry.
At our center we do not have a psychiatry doctor.
Niemniej ja współpracuję z różnymi lekarzami.
But nonetheless I cooperate with different psychiatrists.
I chcę powiedzieć, że jest ogromny kryzys, zwłaszcza w obszarze psychiatrii dzieci i młodzieży.
And I want to say that currently in Poland we experience a huge crisis in psychiatry, especially children's psychiatry.
Nie ukrywam, mam bliskie mamy relacje między poradnią a wspaniałym lekarzem właśnie psychiatrą dzieci i młodzieży.
Like speaking honestly, we have great relationships with between our counseling center and the children's psychiatrist.
I zawsze w sytuacjach jakiegoś dużego kryzysu, właśnie myśli samobójczych.
And in the most serious cases, in cases of suicidal thoughts, for instance,
wykonuję telefon.
I just grab a phone and make a phone call.
I pan doktor zawsze znajduje.
And the doctor always finds a like free slot in his calendar.
Tak to mniej więcej u nas wygląda.
More questions? Okay, so like maybe what was the order? So like maybe you and then
I have a question about license. In Georgia, it's not obligatory to have a license, and we don't have it, to be honest. But some therapists have European one. So I'm interested. As I know, it's obligatory in Poland, right?
We need psychotherapeutic license for psychotherapists. Okay.
What if you had one? What was your university's role to get license obligatory in your country?
Okej, no i jest pytanie o jakby licencję uprawnienia psychoterapeuty. Na czym to polega, jak do tego się dochodzi? To jest coś w tym styczniu.
You can work like a psychotherapist after 40 years of school of psychotherapy without license also after 4 years.
And after MA?
After yes.
Oh, and graduate regulated under law.
There are many schools of psychotherapy. I think that you have to finish university first.
You need postgraduate studies.
Yes.
And it is necessary.
Yes. You can start the psychotherapy school on the 5th year of study.
Okay.
Yes.
The bachelor of studies when you are.
Yes.
Czyli licencja jest uprawnienia, czy jest obowiązkowe? Jest pytanie.
W 4 roku.
Tak, ale jest pytanie, czy jest obowiązkowe posiadanie, czy tak?
Problem polega na tym,
The professor will explain.
problem polega na tym, że istnieje wiele możliwości uzyskania w Polsce uprawnień w zakresie psychoterapii, tak naprawdę różnych szkół psychoterapeutycznych.
Okay, so the whole issue is that in Poland there is a couple of ways of obtaining the license, the certificate. We call it the certificate of psychotherapists.
Terapia eriksonowska.
There are also different schools, like for instance Erikson School in Krakow.
Poznawczo-behawioralna.
Cognitive behavioral in different places.
Dynamiczna nawet.
Dynamic psychotherapy, psychoanalytic psychotherapy.
I jest Polskie Towarzystwo Psychologiczne, które prowadzi rejestr wszystkich ludzi uprawnionych do prowadzenia psychoterapii.
Okay. And in Poland we have a Polish Psychological Association that creates a list, and the list is publicly online available, of all the people that have been awarded the certificate of psychotherapists.
Problem polega na tym, że ustawa o zawodzie psychologa nie została przez Sejm uchwalona i w praktyce rejestr rejestrem, a psychoterapię może uprawiać nawet nie psycholog.
And also a serious problem is the fact that in Poland still we don't have the law on the psychological profession, and the list of the psychotherapists, it exists, but because there is no law, it has no meaning. It cannot be executed in any way. So as professor says, as a result, like basically everyone can present him or herself as a psychotherapist.
The same problem is in Georgia.
Podobny problem właśnie jest w Gruzji. Yes, sir.
And do you have ethical committee in Poland who assess
Czy jest jakiś rodzaj komitetu etycznego w Polsce, który jakby ocenia pod kątem etycznym pracę psychologów?
Oczywiście jest po pierwsze kodeks etyki.
So first there is the ethical code of a psychologist.
Po drugie jest przy Towarzystwie Psychologicznym komisja, która rozpatruje wszelkie bardzo szeroko pojęte sprawy związane z naruszaniem etyki, nie tylko w zakresie psychoterapii, ale na przykład taki pan profesor Nęski został za nieprawidłowo prowadzone udzielane wywiady do różnych gazet powołanej. Taka sprawa wydawała się, że mało istotna, która wzburzyła zresztą środowisko psychologów, bo byli zwolennicy tego, że jest wolność i byli zwolennicy, że należy się wypowiadać tylko w zakresie tym, w którym się czuje człowiek kompetentny.
Yes, there is first there is the ethic code of a psychologist, and secondly, as professor says, at the Polish Psychological Association, there is some kind of ethical committee, and the committee recognizes different cases, different claims that can be reported to the committee regarding cases of violation of the psychologist's ethic. And one of the cases, there was a very loud, very a case covered by the media a few years ago of a famous psychologist, a university professor that gave different interviews in Polish media, and these interviews, the topic of the interviews, were not always connected to the specific area in which he was an expert. He was a scientific expert, and like he was heavily criticizing for speaking in media in topics that he's not specializing in.
Thank you. And the last question about this topic. Do you have any plans in order to change the law? Because we have the same problems. That's why I'm so interested.
Jakie są perspektywy na zmianę właśnie prawa o zawodzie psychologa? Bo coś niedawno wróciło.
Zresztą sprawa tak wróciła, jest chyba w listopadzie wróciła, ale jest cały czas w zamrażarce tak zwanej ustawowej.
Mogę najkrócej historię, bo byłem w to zaangażowany przez wiele lat.
Okay, so Professor Kowalik was involved in the creating of the law.
Problem polega na tym, że ma być jedna ustawa o zawodzie psychologa, którą są zainteresowane co najmniej 3 ministerstwa.
Okay, so the problem is that a single law regarding a psychologist is to be created, and at least 3 ministries are interested in this law.
Czyli Ministerstwo Oświaty, Edukacji w różnych latach.
So the Ministry of Education,
Ministerstwo Zdrowia,
Ministry of Health,
i Ministerstwo Pracy.
and Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs.
I Ministerstwo Zdrowia i Pracy uzgodniło już wszystko o zawodzie psychologa, natomiast Ministerstwo Edukacji powiedziało halo, psycholodzy są pracownikami oświaty i w związku z tym nie żadne towarzystwo, tylko ministerstwo, kuratorzy będą decydowali i o to się rozbiła cała sprawa.
So there was a big argument who is to supervise and to control the psychologists as a professional group, because for instance, as professor says that the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, they already agreed about the new proposed law. And then the Ministry of Education and Science said, oh no, psychologists should be considered as educational staff members and they should be supervised as educational staff members. So there was a big argument on that. And as Robert also says, because the law was already drafted, so there is the draft version of the law, and recently we call it the parliamentary refrigerator. You know, sometimes there are laws that are stuck, in the way to be voted. So our law on psychologist profession is in our parliament's refrigerator. It's waiting for its turn since November, you said?
Yes, I think it's like November.
Yeah, like November last year.
One question. And have you in the case when you have contact student parents, and how often is and what situation?
Okay, sytuacje, kiedy kontaktujemy się z rodzicami studentów, czy się zdarzają, jak często, jak to wygląda?
Mogę ja zacząć? Ze względu na to, że student jest osobą pełnoletnią na uniwersytecie.
So due to the fact that students are over 18, so by the law they are adult, independent people.
Rozmawiamy tylko ze studentem.
We speak only with students.
Tak, ale w sytuacji, kiedy student ma zaburzenie zespołu Aspergera.
But for instance, in cases where we have students with Asperger's syndrome,
to czasami przychodzi taki student na spotkanie ze swoim rodzicem.
Sometimes students take their parents for the appointment.
I to bardzo ułatwia zrozumienie problemu.
And actually it really makes the understanding of the student's problem easier. The context.
Tak? I student jakby musi napisać zgodę na kontakt z rodzicem.
What we do is we ask the students to write a written consent so that the parents can be present during the appointment.
Okay, ale to się tylko zdarza w sytuacji z zespołem Aspergera.
But basically only in case of Asperger's syndrome.
My mieliśmy natomiast doświadczenie ze studentem, ale jeszcze sprzed wojny z Ukrainy.
We had a case of student from Ukraine, but it was before the war.
To był 18-letni chłopak, który ja wczoraj wspominałam, kiedy się z nim spotkałam, był w psychozie.
When we first met him, he was already in psychosis.
Jak się
He
później
was
okazało,
18 years old.
jak się później okazało, tak, tutaj z podwójną diagnozą, czyli uzależnienie i schizofrenia.
Lately, it turned out that there is a, let's say, there is a double diagnosis to be stated on this student, because he, like later, it turned out that he was also addicted to drugs and also had schizophrenia. This was the case that Eva was mentioning yesterday.
I w tej sytuacji tutaj zaopiekowaliśmy i daliśmy mu wsparcie, kontakt z lekarzem psychiatrą, do którego ja z nim pojechałam, on się na to zgodził, no bo jakby z racji stanu nie był w stanie sam, więc pojechaliśmy razem.
So due to his health and due to his like mental and physical state, he wasn't able to visit the psychiatrist by himself. So he agreed that I could go with him. So I went with him.
Ponieważ nie wyraził zgody na pobyt w szpitalu.
Because he didn't agree to be taken to hospital.
Natomiast wyraził zgodę na właśnie kontakt z rodziną.
But he agreed to be contacted with his family.
I tu była sytuacja taka, że jakby po kontakcie z rodziną
and after contacting his family by us,
jego babcia przyjechała tutaj do nas.
His grandmother came to Poland.
Prowadziliśmy taką wspólną rozmowę.
And we had like joint meetings with the grandmother of the students.
I decyzją tego studenta i rodziców, i tej babci, która przyjechała.
So by the joint decision of the student, of the grandmother and the parents that were called by the grandmother,
on wrócił na Ukrainę razem z
he came back to Ukraine with his grandmother.
Wziął tak rok urlopu i tutaj u nas na studiach i tam podjął leczenie.
He took a 1 year dean's leave due to health problems, and he started treatment in Ukraine.
I tutaj jeszcze dodam, ten kontakt z rodziną ujawnił nam, tak, bo on jednak nie był krytyczny w tym momencie, w stosunku, nie miał tego wglądu do siebie.
So at that time, the patient was not critical about reflective on himself. He didn't have reflection into his situation at that time. The possibility of contacting his family turned out to be really useful, really important.
I tutaj ten kontakt z rodziną dał nam szansę zobaczenia i analizy całej sytuacji, tak? I tego właśnie jego postępu, jak się okazało, to uzależnienie już trwało w momencie, kiedy on do nas przyjechał na uczelnię.
Okay, so actually the student story was that contacting his family, the chance to get in touch with his family, gave us, let's say, a deeper insight of his problem. It turned out that he had been already addicted to drugs before other problems started. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes?
I have a question. As I understand, you are trying to strengthen your staff at the university. I'm interested in how can you, what kind of help are you offering to your staff to develop relationship, for example, with students or with difficulties?
Yes, then we contact with ombudsman, with human rights ombudsman, and this is the first step. But we also have workshops. We also have lectures about mobbing and good relations on the university. On an individual meeting, I can recognize what is the problem that this person has difficulties in relations, and I can work with that. We don't lead psychotherapy also, but sometimes every meeting can be like a therapy. You don't have to have often meeting with somebody to. You can also give something what can be like therapy, some kind of exercises to do, and this is what I can do. When I recognize that the problem needs psychotherapy, I propose to go and I can choose for the student or the worker what kind of therapy is the best on this problem. Yes, but to work on a relation, we have to increase the awareness about this, what you can do to make good atmosphere on a university, that you are also involved in this. You can put something from yourself to make good atmosphere. And workshop and lectures and podcasts, yes, we're using this.
Coś jeszcze odnośnie wsparcia dla kadry?
U nas, ja wczoraj wspominałam, u nas organizowane są szkolenia dla kadry, ale nie tylko dla wykładowców, także dla pracowników.
So as I mentioned yesterday, at WSG we organize different trainings and seminars for staff members, not just the academic staff members, but also administrative staff.
Gdzie uczymy o specyfice, tak, właśnie takich objawów różnych niepełnosprawności, różnych zaburzeń, tak, czy to rozwoju, zachowania.
We use the opportunity to educate our academic staff, not only our staff members, about different types of disabilities, mental health issues, behavioral disorders, etc.
I z jednej strony gdzieś też tutaj przekazuję informacje, jak rozpoznać pewne objawy.
So on one hand it's useful because the staff members they may get the knowledge how to recognize some symptoms that are displayed.
Jak należy się zachować w różnych sytuacjach trudnych.
How to act in difficult situations, how to cope with difficult situations.
No i generalnie jak również oceniać, bo tutaj ten obszar nie padł, a przecież nauczyciel również ocenia pracę studenta.
And also, like the third role of the trainings that we provide for the staff is how to grade, how to evaluate students' work, because we are teachers, and as such, one of our roles is to grade students' performance.
I tutaj wychodzi nam, wspólnie mówiliśmy, że rzeczywiście dużą trudnością, dużym problemem dzisiaj są chociażby zaburzenia lękowe, tak?
And as we discussed commonly, as one of the joint conclusions from our cases is that anxiety problems are very, very common nowadays.
I wówczas taka ekspozycja, tak? Egzamin ustny, mamy obok obronę prac dyplomowych.
Social exposure, for instance, during oral exams or during thesis defense, where the student is supposed to speak in public.
Jest dużym problemem.
It's a big problem.
I to, co też ja bardzo się staram robić, żeby właśnie edukować, w jaki sposób rozmawiać i oceniać tych studentów.
What I try to do is also to educate our staff members, especially teachers, how to talk with students, how to give feedback, how to grade.
By dać im szansę zaprezentowania tego potencjału,
to give them the chance to display their potential,
aby właśnie, czy to jakieś zaburzenia lękowe, czy na przykład ze spektrum jeszcze nie zdiagnozowane, bo takich studentów też mamy, nie uniemożliwiły im takiego ich własnego rozwoju, także rozwoju zawodowego.
Okay, so how to talk and how to grade students so that they can unlock their potential on one hand, and on the other, how not let different mental health issues kind of devaluate the students' work.
Tak. I ostatnią jeszcze tylko rzeczą, też króciutko wczoraj wspominałam tutaj też, jak rozmawiałyśmy sobie w przerwie z panią Kamilą, mamy podobne spostrzeżenia, że jeżeli mamy studenta, który ma trudność w regulowaniu emocji z jakiegoś tam powodu.
And as we spoke with Camila during the coffee break, for instance, when we have a student that has a problem with controlling his or her emotions,
to tak naprawdę druga osoba, czyli ten nauczyciel akademicki,
so the second person, that is the academic teacher, the lecturer,
powinien umieć kontrolować własne emocje, co nie jest łatwe.
Should be able to control his or her own emotions, which is not easy, obviously, in such a situation.
I wiedzieć, jak wpływać też swoją postawą.
And the teacher should know how to influence by their attitude, their own attitude.
Na takie wyciszenie, uspokojenie w tym momencie tego studenta.
To soothe a little bit the level of emotion, uncontrolled emotion in the student.
I tego nie wystarczy tylko wiedzieć.
And it's not just the knowledge. The knowledge is not enough in such case.
To trzeba ćwiczyć.
It has to be exercised. It has to be practiced.
Chciałam powiedzieć, że na Uniwersytecie Kazimierza
And your question after that, okay.
Na Uniwersytecie Kazimierza Wielkiego jest coś takiego jak dział dla osób z niepełnosprawnościami.
Okay, so at the Kazimierz Wielki University there is a department for students with disabilities.
I w tym roku ten dział organizuje takie szkolenia unijne.
This year the department is organizing training. They are part of a EU finance project.
Skierowane do nauczycieli akademickich, jak i do pracowników administracyjnych.
The trainings are addressed to both administrative and academic staff members.
Jak wspierać i jak pracować z osobami z niepełnosprawnościami.
How to support and how to work with people with different disabilities.
Ćwiczą, tak, czy pokazują rozwiązania w zakresie niepełnosprawności ruchowej, wzrokowej, słuchowej, ale również z niepełnosprawnościami, czy można powiedzieć, zaburzeniami psychicznymi.
So they gain knowledge and also practice possible situations regarding not only somatic or sensory disabilities, but also disabilities linked to mental health issues.
Można to uzupełnić? To znaczy, w Polsce jest coś takiego jak pełnomocnik rządu do spraw osób niepełnosprawnych.
In Poland there is a function called the government's ombudsman, the government's spokesperson for disability rights.
I w jego jakby gestii jest możliwość wspierania przede wszystkim finansowego studentów niepełnosprawnych.
So the spokesman office is able to provide financing for supporting, for instance, students with disabilities.
Jednocześnie ten rzecznik bardzo pilnuje, żeby w każdej polskiej uczelni był uczelniany pełnomocnik rektora do spraw osób niepełnosprawnych. Sam byłem przez chyba 20 lat takim pełnomocnikiem.
Okay. So another role of the spokesperson of the disability rights is to provide that in each and every university in Poland there should be assigned a spokesperson for disability rights or for disabled students' rights. And Professor Kowalik himself was such a spokesman at Poznań University for over 20 years.
I co roku dostaje ze specjalnego funduszu rehabilitacji osób niepełnosprawnych.
And each year I am given funding from a special rehabilitation fund. It's called in Poland it's called Disability Rehabilitation Fund.
Dość dużą sumę pieniędzy.
Well, a significant sum of money, significant financing.
Którą dzielę na dwie kategorie.
That is divided into two categories.
Na indywidualną pomoc, na przykład ktoś
support.
potrzebuje wózka albo ktoś potrzebuje jakiegoś tam aparatu słuchowego.
Okay, so the individual support can be spent on devices and equipment, for instance, a hearing aid, a wheelchair, etc.
A nawet asystenta osobistego.
And even hiring the assistant for a disabled student.
A druga część tych pieniędzy jest przeznaczona na udoskonalenie uczelni w sensie przestrzennym, czyli wszelkie architektoniczne, na przykład centra akustyczna sali wykładowej.
Okay, and the second part of this funding has to be spent on improving the university's infrastructure and the whole environment. For instance, acoustic loops in lecture halls, so that the infrastructure is more accessible and more friendly for students with disabilities.
I można z tych pieniędzy tak naprawdę teraz, myśmy to tak robili, że konsultujemy ze studentami niepełnosprawnymi, jakie oni mają preferencje w zakresie wydawania tych pieniędzy. Czy łazienkę w odpowiedni sposób naprawić, czy ewentualnie jakieś tam dodatkowe urządzenia wyposażenia zażyć.
Okay, so our approach, what we do at Poznan University is to consult with our disabled student community how this money on infrastructure should be spent. For instance, if there is a need to renovate a bathroom or redevelop the bathroom, the toilet, so that is also accessible for disabled students, we do it. So we try to consult with the student community what is necessary.
Dopowiem jeszcze, że ten pełnomocnik pełni bardzo wielką presję na uczelni wywiera.
Okay, so I would add that the disability spokesman can make a really big, significant pressure, big impact at the university.
Raz w roku oni, czyli pełnomocnik rządu, organizuje ankiety, przeprowadzenie ankiet wśród studentów niepełnosprawnych ze wszystkich uczelni w Polsce.
Okay, so once a year, the government's spokesman for disability rights organizes a big survey among all disabled students from all Polish universities.
I mając wyniki, promuje te uczelnie pozytywne i oczywiście przyjeżdża specjalna komisja sprawdzić, co się dzieje, gdzie...
Okay, so the surveys, like the questionnaires filled by students with disabilities, they are a basis for evaluation and sometimes even kind of audit, kind of check-in visits from the governor's, from the government spokesperson office. They sometimes arrive at universities and they do check if the money are spent properly, if the infrastructure is adjusted in a satisfactory level.
Ja uważam, że ten problem tak naprawdę, również jeśli chodzi o pomoc psychologiczną, mamy jakoś opanowany.
And I would say that regarding the psychological support, well, the needs are like more or less satisfied.
Nierozwiązany jest problem ze studentami zagranicznymi.
What is still unsolved is the issue of foreign students with psychological problems.
I nierozwiązany jest problem z osobami uzależnionymi od alkoholu, studentami uzależnionymi od alkoholu, narkomanów. To jest naprawdę problem, który narasta. Naprawdę stłumiony przez koronawirusa przez pewien czas, ale przedtem cały czas obserwowałem, że to na przykład rośnie na kilku uczelniach.
Okay, so the first is this, so the two unsolved problems remained. One was about the foreign students that displayed psychological problems, and the second problems are students with substance addictions like drugs or alcohol. As professor says, this problem, the problem of addiction among students, was a bit silenced down in the pandemic time, because students didn't really appear on the campus, but it's still a serious matter that has to be solved. So your question first and then your?
You mentioned emotions and I just wanted to ask about this. Can you share your experience and give advice? How do you deal with yourself? Because for example, I'm new in psychotherapy and often I understand, not often, but I understand that some cases are very sensitive for me and I don't want to work on this because I have own ideas with myself. So it's kind of challenge for me because I don't want always to say no for this, but also it might be too much. So how do you deal with all of this?
Okay, so the therapist's own emotions and self-care of the therapist. Okay, so więc tutaj jest pytanie jakby o dbanie o własne emocje psychologa, terapeuty, o takie nieprzeciążanie siebie przypadkami studentów, którzy zgłaszają problemy. To kto z Państwa?
Ja.
Dobrze.
Yes, it's a very wide question. It's a very wide question.
Ale są różne szkoły. Ja na przykład uważam, że można i trzeba się czasami angażować w te problemy.
Like there are different schools, different approaches. I am the one that states that sometimes it is necessary to get involved in the story. I know that I am the minority, but like this is my stance, that sometimes it is necessary.
To zależy od sytuacji po prostu.
It depends on the situation.
byłem pełnomocnikiem rektora do spraw studentów obcokrajowców, a raporty przyszli do mnie, żebym ja im meczet przygotował.
There was a case, for instance, I was a rector's proxy for international students for sometimes, and one day a group of Arab students came to me and they said that they would like to have a mosque on the university campus.
No i z wielkim zaangażowaniem przystąpiłem do tego, doprowadzając do tego, że w akademiku jeden z pokoi został przystosowany na takie miejsce kultu religijnego dla nich. I to spowodowało tak naprawdę, oni uwierzyli, że ja rzeczywiście jestem po ich stronie, bo przeciwników tego było ogromnie dużo. I od tego czasu przez 4 lata co tydzień byłem goszczony przez wszystkich studentów. Stworzyłem grupę. Pochwalę się tym, bo to warto wykorzystać. Stworzyłem grupę, że z Afganistanu, z Peru, z Afryki przyjeżdżali, wszyscy studenci się gromadzili razem ze mną, ja byłem zaproszony i zawsze był obiad regionalny. Sprowadzali specjalne tam przyprawy z tego swojego kraju, wymienialiśmy się informacjami, stworzyliśmy kilkudziesięcioosobową grupę wsparcia. To się rzadko zdarza, żeby coś takiego było, ale punktem wyjścia było moje zaangażowanie w konkretną sprawę.
Okay, dobra, to spróbuję to zbriefować. Okay, so putting long story short, as professor says, he involved in the case. He did his best to help the Muslim students to create a prayer room, not at the campus specifically, but at the dormitory. And as a kind of thanksgiving, the students always invited him for the meetings. And this involvement in this single case led to something that the professor is really proud of, because this led to creating a whole international students community at the university, not just Muslim students, but students of different religions, different countries, different backgrounds, and they used to have weekly meetings with lunch and social part and everything. So, like, the sense is that sometimes it is worthy to get involved in a particular case. But I believe you were also interested in more therapeutic cases.
Yes.
Bo tutaj pytanie koleżanki było bardziej też o zaangażowanie w sytuacjach psychologicznych, terapeutycznych też.
Because mostly the problems are traumas, and trauma could be close enough for us. Something you do a kind, it's okay. It's like your pleasant, also you
przenoszenie siebie traumą studenta. Okej,
to jeśli ja mogę powiedzieć, to odniosę się najpierw do mojego takiego doświadczenia ze szkoły podstawowej, terapeutycznej dla dzieci ze spektrum autyzmu.
Okay, so if I may add something, I will refer to a case that occurred when I was working in a elementary school for children with autism spectrum.
Z którą współpracuję, jestem terapeutą takich osób.
I still cooperate with that school and I provide therapy for children in autism spectrum.
I w tej szkole tak pokazuję taką dobrą praktykę, którą chciałabym przenieść na grunt też placówek wyższych.
In this school we do some kind of good practice that we would like to transfer also to universities.
W tej szkole jest psycholog kliniczny.
There is a clinical psychologist at the school,
który opiekuje się nauczycielami i terapeutami tej szkoły.
That provides care for teachers and therapists in that school.
I daje im możliwość, tak, właśnie odreagowania emocji, przepracowania różnych sytuacji.
And gives them the opportunity to react on their emotions, how to, like, let's say, to work through different situations.
I też wspiera w rozwiązywaniu jakichś sytuacji trudnych między dziećmi czy rodzicami tychże dzieci.
And supports in difficult situations.
I to jest bardzo pomocne, bo my to wiemy, pracując z trudnymi zachowaniami różnych osób.
Like we know that working with difficult cases and difficult behaviors,
my też potrzebujemy wsparcia, pomocy, wygadania się tak po prostu.
We ourselves, we also need help. We sometimes need like a safe environment to talk about our problems.
I moim marzeniem jest,
And what I dream of is,
aby rzeczywiście w różnych placówkach edukacyjnych, na różnych jakby poziomach edukacji,
like my dream is that in different educational institutions on different levels of education,
właśnie taki charakter był także wsparcia pomocy również dla nauczycieli akademickich,
provide the support also for lecturers, for academic teachers,
czy innych pracowników administracyjnych,
also for administrative staff members,
którzy znajdują się w różnych trudnych sytuacjach.
that work with difficult situations.
Powiem tylko dla przykładu, mieliśmy taką sytuację,
we had a case,
że jedna z naszych studentek, która chorowała na schizofrenię,
we have a student with schizophrenia,
przed egzaminami, kiedy ten poziom stresu wzrósł, no i też jej poziom funkcjonowania zdecydowanie był trudniejszy.
Before the examination session, when usually the level of stress is very high,
będąc w kontakcie mailowym ze swoimi właśnie nauczycielami,
she was in touch by email with her lecturers.
Zaczęła wysyłać o różnej treści maile, także takie zastraszające.
She started to send out a very weird emails to the lecturers' families even, with threats, with like very negative messages.
No i tutaj rzeczywiście już opracowywaliśmy całą strategię z jednej strony pracy z nią, ale z drugiej również wsparcia tego nauczyciela w takim kryzysie, w jakim się też znalazł.
And we had to very urgently, take care not only of the student who was obviously in a psychotic episode, but we also had to take care very urgently with the lecturers affected by her emails. You know, when you start receiving death threats from your students, it's like something incredible.
Każdy z nas oczywiście, my uczymy, więc też czerpiemy jakby z własnych doświadczeń i metod relaksacyjnych, tak? I takiego odreagowania tych właśnie emocji, które wnosi pacjent.
So like as teachers we also refer to relaxations methods, to methods of stress reduction.
Zachęcam pana kanclerza do tego, by organizować być może nawet wyjazdowe, takie kilkudniowe grupy dla nas, specjalistów.
I encourage our counselor to organize maybe even trainings connected with trips to completely other places.
Właśnie po to, żebyśmy i my mogli przegadać pewne rzeczy.
So that we can work on specific things in a completely different environment than our everyday working environment.
I jakby stosując różne metody, tak, terapii, pracy z ciałem, relaksacji.
And using different methods, not just therapy, but also relaxation, also work with the body.
Móc właśnie systematycznie przepracować emocje, tak, które są w nas i które
to work on the emotions systematically.
Supervision is necessary when you work as a psychotherapist. Supervision it's the answer. I work also at the hospital, and we've got regular supervision. Talk with a colleague, it's not enough in the front of so difficult problems, but I think that if you are not ready to take some problem, you can also resign and to find somebody else to work with this problem for this person.
May I share my experience? 80 plus hours of individual therapy, it's going on. I think I will have it for the rest of my life. 120 hours of group therapy is my therapy. 60 hours of individual supervision and also going on. And I think 100 hours of group supervision.
Yeah.
So supervisor and individual therapist for us therapists is crucial. It's not even an option. It's a very costly profession, and we need to put a lot of money into our own well-being. Otherwise, we're going to burn out in a year. So own individual therapy and own supervision is crucial.
I have questions.
Thanks. Sorry.
I have questions. And what methods do you prefer mostly often
when you work students who had problems, alcoholism and college problems, what methods do you prefer? Mostly offer.
To znaczy powiem tak, że ja nie jestem terapeutą uzależnień.
I am not an addiction therapist.
Więc jeżeli w czasie konsultacji widzę, że jest taki problem,
so whenever during the consultation I see that there is a significant problem with addiction,
to przekierowuję, tak?
I link the students to the addiction therapy.
Do osób, do miejsc, tak, z których może ta osoba skorzystać.
To the centers, to the people, to the specialists that are experts on addiction, and the students can be supported by them.
Daje też różne możliwości, bo to jest ważne, bo nie wszyscy mają zasoby finansowe, by skorzystać prywatnie.
Like not all people are financially able to go to addiction therapy.
Podpowiadam też miejsca, tak, gdzie można nieodpłatnie skorzystać.
So I try to link students to the places, to the centers where the addiction therapy is free of charge.
Natomiast bardzo ważne jest działanie już później nasze, kiedy ten student wraca po terapii, czy to zamkniętej, czy otwartej.
So what is crucial is to provide a care for the students when the student is back from the therapy, either therapy in a closed center or outpatient therapy.
I nadal potrzebuje takiego wsparcia, by
And
utrzymać,
to sustain the support.
by tutaj utrzymać, tak, poradzić sobie z sytuacjami trudnymi. Tak?
A ja mogę mieć pytanie, bo też
Okay, so there will be a question from the professor.
takie pewne rzeczy, które doświadczenia nie mam jednoznacznego stanowiska. Pewnie w każdej uczelni jest rzecznik do spraw dyscyplinarnych studentów.
Okay, so please tell me from your experience, because as I guess at Georgian universities there is also a function that is in Poland. It's called the disciplinary spokesperson, some kind of disciplinary committee or ethic committee.
Chodzi o molestowanie seksualne,
That recognizes cases, for instance, in sexual harassment or cases of offenses at the university.
Czy są takie komisje?
Do you have this kind of?
Nie mam. To nie mam pytania.
Okay, so no question.
But when we have a situation where when the students it's bad behavior, what happens? For example, I don't know, the student came to your university completely drunk, and what happened? Are you okay?
No, but I mean, maybe it's named differently. Just a second. Let me pick like the appropriate word. You know, it's either the person or a department or an office that recognizes the cases of, let's say,
the security office.
Security office. You mentioned correctly regarding the ethical laws.
Just a second.
Ktoś, kto może delegować tego studenta z uczelni. Jest jakiś komitet, jakaś grupa, jakiś
disciplinary commission.
Disciplinary commission,
Or for instance, if it's the lecturer that behaves in an inappropriate way, who is to react in such cases? Security committee?
For example, if a drunk student attends the lecture and the lecturer notices that this is not an appropriate way to attend the lecture, in this case, the lecturer must contact the head of the security office. We have such person at our university, and then this person comes at the lecture and he will escort the student outside of the campus.
Okay. Nie no, tutaj mówi o takiej kwestii, że przychodzi student,
Nie ma tego.
Zaraz, dowiemy się, może się inaczej nazywa, albo jest?
Actually, the issue which you have risen now, it's concerns regarding the disciplinary committee which we have at our universities. and also that it is regulated with the ethical laws. It concerns not only the students but the lecturers as well. From my experience, we did not have any issue regarding the lecturer, but I had that's what in different university I work as an invited lecturer. Also having such kind of things. They have a relationship with students and lecturer, so both of them were dismissed from the university. Even the student, after this relationship with lecturer, committed suicide. This was foreigner, I think this was an example.
Okay, but to sum it up, regardless of the name of the committee, department person, you have someone at the university to recognize such, let's say, unethical or inappropriate behaviors.
It's regulated one. We have official documents, and it is regulated around it. So this is here we have the committee. This committee members are the juridical department representative, dean, also the here they could be maybe the teaching process, head of the teaching process department, and even the student representative, and one side student representative from the student government, and another part would be the student who make such kind of things. For example, and because of this, just broke the law, to say like this.
Okay.
And first time, we are just giving, it depends on the case, we discuss, and after this we decide to give the, to just say, to warn, just to warn, or if this, such kind of things would repeat, if it had another step, the same style, or similar one, after this we stop status to the students. Maybe it would be prolonged for 1 semester, and if it again happens, we dismiss from the university.
Okay, and your question was?
No, I just wanted to add that the our university also have a department which is called Learning Process Monitoring Department. So they are like monitoring the overall learning process of our university. And for example, if a student comes drunk at the lecture, they are responsible for filling out the forms that they decide to dismiss the student for 1 week, 1 month, or a semester. So they are responsible for that.
Okej, czyli tak, zbierając to wszystko, może to się inaczej nazywa, ale są osoby czy gremie, które się zajmują takimi przypadkami.
Znaczy u nas zawsze na pierwszym roku, jak student zaczyna studia, jest zabawy, wyjazdy i tak dalej. Bo tu bardzo dużo mówiliśmy o różnych terapeutycznych aspektach, a ja bym chciał zapytać o profilaktykę. U nas, bo to jest forma takiej prewencji, czyli wejście w tą sytuację stresową, rozpoczęcie studium.
Okay. So there is a question from so there is a question, let's say, from the point of view of a fresh student that starts his or her first year. What is done at your university, for instance, to reduce the stress at the very beginning of the study? How to help the students to, let's say, integration or acclimatization to the university? And also, because the question is in the context of mental health prevention. So, what your university do to make the first steps at the university easier for the students?
So, right after the students are enrolled at our university, and even before they are enrolled, our university, each and every dean of each and every faculty, organizes orientation meetings for the students that are like pastoral applicants, and right after they apply, when they become our
Okay.
These are the meetings when they get acquainted with the campus, then they get to know more about the programs, they get to know about like managers, faculty members, academic staff. So before flying and after flying, they have these meetings so that they have this information when they are coming. Like, this is not like when they apply and they come at our university and everything is the first they see. So they see all these things before applying. And when they come to our university, they also have the same meetings. So yeah, they are informed. There are no surprises. Great.
Natomiast to wszędzie jest u nas, natomiast w naszych uczelniach jest wyjazd integracyjny i to 2 tygodnie, tydzień. I wtedy psycholodzy bardzo często wchodzą na konferencję.
Okay, so at some Polish university there is a practice of the so-called integration camp. So for the freshers, before the academic year starts, there is a, let's say, 1 week trip to a nice place in the mountains, you see. And as professor says, sometimes even psychologists work with fresh students that time. Yes, and then your question. Okay.
Yes, because we have the same thing. That's why I wanted to say I am also a graduate of this university where I work at. And when I enrolled here, we had like a welcome trip. They took us somewhere and like we get acquainted with each other. Also, the president of our university was there, like deans and the faculty members. But right after the pandemic, that was like they couldn't manage it during the pandemic. But hopefully they will have such trips.
Okej, z perspektywy absolwentów uniwersytetu i teraz pracowników tego uniwersytetu bardzo fajną rzeczą były właśnie takie obozy integracyjne. Niestety, jak koleżanka mówi, one umarły po pandemii. Nikt tego nie organizuje. Okay, and question from you?
No, I just wanted to say that, for example, our university several years that doing the trainings, the small trainings for the first year students for adaptation in university. We do such kind of games for the first year students that they can represent themselves, they can say what they are interested in, what they are names, what they would like to know, and so on. So it's a short training, really short one. It's like 3 hours and 1 day only, but it really helps students because after this they are more open to the society of universities. They are not like they are free to ask the questions, and it really helps. And also, we do, for example, orientation trainings for the 10th and 11th grade, 10, 11, and 12th grade students, school children who would like to choose their profession and they don't know, for example, where they would like to study, what they would like to study, and so on. So such kind of small trainings really helps.
Czyli tutaj na innej uczelni też są takie szkolenia, takie treningi adaptacyjne i jeszcze u nich jest to dodatkowo połączone z jakby wymiarem orientacji doradztwa zawodowego. Okay, really nice example. May I tell about one example from our university? A couple of days ago, it was the 19th of May, so it was literally last week. As you probably know, on the 19th of May, Ukraine celebrates its Wyszywanka Day, the day of the embroidered shirt. So, as you also know, Ukrainians are the biggest group of our international students, but not the only one. We also have students from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, from Georgia, from Armenia, from Azerbaijan, from India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, oh my God, like many countries. Yes, from African countries, from Rwanda, from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, Congo. And we decided, like, we surely wanted to celebrate Wyszywanka Day. Actually, we've been doing that for several years. We always celebrated Wyszywanka Day at our campus. But this year, we had a long discussion. We wanted to continue the celebration of Wyszywanka Day, but we felt like some of our foreign students from other countries than Ukraine started to feel like a little bit envious that, you know, all the love, all the support, all the attention goes to Ukraine, and they understand it, but they felt like a little bit swept to the side. So we decided that this year we want to integrate the Wyszywanka Day with something that we called the International Students Culture Day. And we made some kind of multicultural pops at our campus. We made a huge event in our sports hall, and then the second part was taking part outdoors, where all the students had the opportunity to display and exhibit things related with all the cultures represented at our campus, all the countries, all the cultures. So, for instance, regarding Georgia, it was possible to take a lesson of the Georgian alphabet. So, for instance, I was able to write my name in the Georgian alphabet. So proud of myself. Then the Ukrainian students cooked some borscht. Students from Kazakhstan, they also made an exhibition of their national cuisine. Students from Rwanda, they cooked traditional African dishes, and it was really nice, and it really helped to, as I said, there was maybe not conflict, but there was a feeling of a little bit envy. So like, oh, now you are thinking only about Ukraine, and what about us, what about other countries? And by this event, we managed to let's say, unload the atmosphere a little bit.
And do you have students from Russia, Russian citizens?
As I don't have the precise data. Maybe Marek tomorrow will be able to say the details. But I think that nowadays we have
a group of exchange students, because we cooperate with some universities from Russia, and they came to us for for 2 weeks.
Yes, like we.
Intensive program.
Okay, so like we suspended all agreements on cooperation with Russia. But as far as I know, the students that are currently during the semester, they are able to complete the semester and they will just go back to their country. So we didn't expel any Russian students.
When it will be appropriate, can we have 5-minute break?
Prośba o przerwę, tak?
I think we will just finish with just 5-7 minutes. We will summarize our meeting and that's it. My last question and also like a kind of summarize this meeting. I want to ask about feedback and about evaluation of your support for students. Do you have any, I don't know, like a quick questionnaire? How you know that your support it's good for the students? Do you ask them, or you get some other kinds of feedback from them?
I have the feedback from my students. Yes, they are very happy that they have a free access to specialists. This is the first and the most important, that they can talk with somebody, they can get help. I know that students make some, anketa. Yes, they are doing something like this. Yes, there are some, but I don't know how it looks like after. But yes, they are very happy that they can talk with psychologists. And I work in a hospital, and in a hospital I don't have so many grateful and takich wdzięcznych, grateful words like from students, because they usually have to wait for help many months in Poland. That if somebody is really interested in their problems and they can talk with him in 2 weeks, they can only wait for 2 weeks. They are very happy. And many problems of anxiety problems we can solve also during consultation. It don't have to be a long therapy. If you give some methods to work, they work on this, and they come after 2 months, and they of course they give good feedback that it works. Not every problem you can solve in a consultation. Of course, you can propose some kind of therapy, but the anxiety problem is the best to solve in short contact with students.
I was wondering because when I just prepare the report about the psychological support in Poland, I asked also other universities, and I think nowhere they have like the systems of the evaluation process. But if we consider the psychological help for the student as a project, I think we should also consider some kind of evaluation of this process. This is the reason of my question. And at your university, system evaluacji?
Systemu ewaluacji nie ma. Dostaję ewentualnie indywidualne informacje zgłoszone od studentów.
Okay, so so far we don't have a structured evaluation system on our psychological support, but what I receive is different forms of feedback from my students.
Co nie znaczy, że nie stworzę takiego systemu.
Which doesn't mean that I won't create this kind of evaluation system.
Takie najważniejsze momenty z mojej pracy zawodowej.
Like the most precious moment from my professional career.
Pamiętam, jak przyszedł student z zaburzeniami psychotycznymi.
I remember a student who came to me with psychotic problems, and he was even delusional.
Tak, również z myślami samobójczymi.
He had suicidal thoughts.
Tak, do którego wezwałam pomoc medyczną.
And this was the case that I just called the medical emergency.
I po powrocie z tego szpitala.
And when he was back from the hospital,
powiedział mi takie słowo, że jak on to powiedział, że wreszcie czuję, jakbym był trzeźwy.
And he said, wow, finally I feel like I am sober.
Że pod wpływem tych leków, które zaczął brać, zupełnie zaczął inaczej funkcjonować.
So when he also started treatment, he started to feel like in a completely different way.
Jeszcze takie jedno doświadczenie, przychodziła do mnie studentka z zaburzeniami lękowymi.
I also had a student who had anxiety problems.
Tak, i czułam olbrzymią dumę, jak widziałam ją później za parę lat na scenie jako artystę. Tak.
And a couple of years later, I felt really, really proud for her when I saw her on a stage as a performing artist.
Więc są takie bardzo przyjemne sytuacje. Pracuję również na uniwersytecie jako nauczyciel, który prowadzi trening umiejętności społecznych.
So besides of the psychological support, I also work as a lecturer of the social skills training.
Najbardziej mnie cieszy, jak oni chcą przyjść kolejny raz z grupą na zajęcia.
And what really makes me happy and proud is when I hear from my students that they want to. A to chcą przyjść z inną grupą nauczyciele, czy wykładowcy, czy studenci?
Student chce przyjść jeszcze raz na te zajęcia, które my zajęcia.
Okay, so even when I gave my students the credits, they sometimes say, "Oh, I want to come again with another group. I want to repeat the classes." So these are the really precious moments.
Can you tell us about more social skills training?
Znowu jest pytanie, czy możemy coś więcej powiedzieć jakby o metodologii treningu umiejętności społecznych? Bo już wczoraj też to pytanie się pojawiło. Może czym on jest, jako metoda pracy, jak to na czym polega? Ty, Ewa, też już
Ja tak tylko powiem, bo my tych treningów umiejętności społecznych w Polaki mamy bardzo dużo w tej chwili.
We provide lots of social skills training at our counseling center.
Z racji poradni psychologiczno-pedagogicznej mamy na tych treningach dzieci w wieku od tak naprawdę 3-4 roku życia już.
We provide social skills training for different age groups. The youngest are children over 3.
Wśród tych dzieci są też dzieci naszych studentów.
Including the children of our students.
Są dzieci z orzeczeniami o niepełnosprawności.
Also children who have disability diagnosis.
I tutaj pojawiają nam się spektrum autyzmu,
with autism spectrum,
zespół nadpobudliwości psychoruchowej z deficytem uwagi,
ADHD disorder.
Czy też pojawiają nam się zachowania opozycyjno-buntownicze,
or oppositional behavior,
czy właśnie jakieś zaburzenia lękowe.
anxiety problems.
I mamy generalnie podzielone grupy, mamy też nastolatków.
We also have subgroups for teenagers.
Grupy są tak naprawdę małe. Najmniejsza grupa liczy troje.
The training is usually conducted in small groups. Let's say the minimum group size is 3 persons.
Do 10 osób.
From 3 to 10 persons usually.
Dla każdej osoby w wyniku po wywiadzie, tak, przeanalizowaniu dokumentacji,
we provide the interview for each participant and also we analyze the participant's document and
ustalamy, tak, do jakiej grupy, jaki program powinna ta osoba realizować.
So we assign the participant to a specific group based on the initial analysis.
TOOLS obejmuje.
TOOLS the training, social skills training includes
umiejętność rozpoznawania i nazywania emocji.
So what we educate during the training is to how to name and how to identify one's emotions, how to recognize emotions, how to express emotions in appropriate way,
nawiązywania i podtrzymywania relacji społecznych,
how to create and sustain social relationships,
rozwiązywania konfliktów,
how to solve conflicts,
negocjowania,
negotiation,
reagowania na słuszną krytykę,
how to cope with
udzielania krytyki,
how to give criticism, how to give feedback.
Dużo pracujemy nad samooceną.
We also work a lot with self-confidence.
Umiejętnością dostrzegania w sobie zasobów, mocnych stron.
How to recognize one's own potential, one's own resources.
Umiejętnością wyrażania przed innymi tych mocnych stron.
How to display my strengths, my assets in front of others.
Ale również dostrzegania, tak, swoich tych zasobów w sensie możliwości, czyli tych trudności, które nadal są do pracy.
But also how to recognize one's own weaknesses or areas that could be improved.
To jest bardzo ważne przy wyborze na przykład ścieżki zawodowej.
This is very important regarding, for instance, choosing one's professional future, choosing the education path.
Uczymy się też czekania na swoją kolej, rywalizacji.
We also wait how to compete on something, how to wait for one's turn in something.
I to, co jest najważniejsze, jak do nas trafiają na przykład różne dzieci czy młodzież,
when we work with children or teenagers,
to zawsze zawiązujemy taką psychoedukacyjną współpracę z rodzicami, bo nie ma dziecka bez rodzica.
We establish some kind of psychoeducational cooperation with parents because there is no child development without parents.
I odnosząc się jeszcze wcześniej do właśnie takiej satysfakcji też niektórych takich właśnie terapii.
And if I may add something about the satisfying moment from my work.
Pamiętam sytuację, gdy pracowałam właśnie w taki sposób między innymi z dzieckiem z autyzmem.
I remember a case of a child with autism spectrum.
Które funkcjonowało w rodzinie, tak rodzice i jeszcze brat był w tejże rodzinie.
So there was a family of 4 people, the child's brother, the parents.
I cała rodzina była w rozsypce z uwagi na autyzm tego dziecka.
And actually the family was in pieces due to the child's autism.
byli na granicy rozwoju.
And the parents were on the verge of divorce.
I udało się pokazać takie pomysły i takie rozwiązania.
But we went successful with this family. We managed to show such methods, such solutions.
Że rodzice weszli w psychoterapię systemową.
So that the parents started the systematical psychotherapy.
I do dzisiaj.
And until this
są
day,
wdzięczni, jak to mówią, za uratowanie ich małżeństwa.
They are very, very grateful for saving their marriage and their family.
I tak dodam jeszcze klasycznie, klasyka tematu taka.
And let's say something classical for me.
Pamiętam pierwsze spotkanie z ojcem tego chłopca.
I remember a first meeting with this boy's father.
Który nawet użył brzydkiego słowa, że po co, na co, przecież to jego dziecko ma problem, nie on.
At first he was very skeptical, he even used some bad words. What is this all for? This is my child.
Tak, a na koniec przyszedł z wielkim bukietem kwiatów.
And at the last meeting he showed up with a huge bunch of flowers.
Dziękując właśnie za to, że jego rodzina trwa i ma się dobrze.
And he was very thankful that his family lasts and everything went okay.
To jest super, daje dużą satysfakcję.
A może coś o tym się kompetencji studentów, czyli bardziej tej grupy wiekowej, o której Okay, so another dimension. So going back to the social skills training, what is necessary in the context of students is assertiveness.
They ask me how to be assertive.
Yeah, what are the common
lectures and workshops for assertiveness. This is the best. They can try, they can train to be assertive. Yes.
Ja na swoich zajęciach szczególnie kładę nacisk tak naprawdę na budowanie poczucia własnej wartości i na podnoszenie samooceny.
So what I do during social skills training is to putting the emphasis on self-confidence and building one's self-confidence, self-worth.
Oraz na uświadamianiu sobie zasobów.
And also being aware of one's own resources.
By potrafić radzić sobie z trudnymi sytuacjami.
Because resources enable us to cope with the difficult situation, with crises.
Kolejną rzeczą to jest jak radzić sobie ze stresem.
Another thing is stress, coping with stress.
Ale na takim poziomie poznawczym.
But in a cognitive way.
Bo tak jak mówię, stresu nie wybiegasz, nie oddychasz i nie wyćwiczysz jogą.
Because as I always tend to say, you will not battle stress just by running, exercising yoga or breathing.
Musisz zrozumieć problem.
You have to understand the problem.
Wykorzystując własne zasoby.
And using your own resources.
Żeby poradzić sobie ze stresem.
To cope with stress.
There are different approaches. I work with students on neurobiological theories. They have to imagine the stressful situation, imagine every piece of things which are in the situation, and they imagine it repeatedly, and then after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, they see some results, and it's very effective. This method, mind sculpture, is very great for this. I want to say something about this what you mentioned. Nie, zapomniałam, co chciałam powiedzieć. Ale coś właściwego zaraz przyjdzie.
Ja też powiem, że w ramach tego treningu uczę takich krótkich technik, znaczy zwiększających relaksację.
What I also teach during social skills training are short techniques that enable relaxation.
Wykorzystuję takie techniki z zakresu neurolingwistycznego programowania.
For instance, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming Techniques,
które bazują na tak zwanym warunkowaniu klasycznym we Włochach.
Who are based on Pavlov's classical conditioning.
Czyli zakładam, kojarzę jakiś fajny moment, nie wiem, z uściskiem, z obrazem i potem przywołuję go w sytuacji dla mnie trudnej.
So I choose a pleasant moment that is associated with a hug, with something pleasant, and then I try to recall this moment in a certain situation.
Of course, you can also play the skin and play the role to work on social skills. Yes, you can also do this on lessons with students. Difficult situations or something like that.
Ja jeszcze dodam, czasami na przykład pomocna bywa też elementy terapii skoncentrowanej na rozwiązaniach, na przykład, czy też taka stosowana analiza zachowania, tak, zwłaszcza dziecka i wsparcie tutaj też tego rodzica, studenta w różnych trudnych zachowaniach.
So
Najpierw terapia skoncentrowana na rozwiązaniach.
Okay, so first solution-based therapy.
I stosowana analiza zachowania.
And then applied analysis of behavior.
Też w pracy jakby ze studentami, którzy posiadają dzieci z różnego rodzaju niepełnosprawnościach, bywa to bardzo też wspierane.
So like these approaches are, this is something I use when I work with students who have children with disabilities or with mental health problems.
Ja też na zajęciach ze swoimi studentami często wykorzystuję warsztaty w radzeniu sobie ze złością, z lękiem.
What I also use when I work with our students are anger management classes and anger management techniques.
I tutaj widzę nadal jeszcze takie pokłosie wychowania dziewczynek, kobiet na bardziej uległe.
Oh, and what I can see is that the consequences of upbringing girls as very submissive can still be seen.
I w rezultacie przekonanie, że złość i złoszczenie się jest czymś złym.
And one of the consequences of this submissive upbringing of girls is the thinking that displaying anger, showing anger is something very negative.
To potem skutkuje często konsekwencjami różnych trudności natury emocji.
This, of course, this may cause a huge emotional burden.
Okay, so I think that there will be also a lot of questions about. We are just close to end of our meetings. I just want to once again say thank you for sharing your experience, and I think it was a nice meeting, and we had a great opportunity to know each other and also to discuss about different forms and methods of support students in psychological way. And we consider a lot of target groups like lecturers and also the students. And I think the next day, if you will have any questions, we can also share these questions to our colleagues from the different universities. So once again, thank you very much for your involvement in this. Yes, and yes, then now we have time for lunch, and please be back at 1:30 in K building.
Tak,